Thanks so much, Vinama and Ed. We really appreciate that really great conversation. We're going to continue and speed forward and elevate our thinking with our next presentation. Are you ready to crack the AI code? Yeah? All right, guys. What a timely topic. Certainly something everyone is talking about, and most of us continue to struggle with. Welcome, Lisa Paley, President of North America, and KK, Chief Data Officer from Haleon. We're thrilled to have you both here.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jen. Appreciate it. I'm just going to ease us into the topic because it's already come up so much naturally this morning. It's on everyone's mind, and that's because we're in a major state of transformation. And wherever you are on that journey, you're going to be welcome to this next conversation because we do understand we all have different but acceptable starting points, as long as we understand it's transformation on our watch. And what I thought would be great, and there was a question earlier, like how do we bring in new thinking into the industry? KK, who we all can call him that, by the way, to keep it easy, he's going to share with us the journey that he's been on. And he comes from outside of our industry, but helps really think through ways that we can begin and further transform what we do in health and in wellness. And we're super excited about that journey. We'll share a little bit about what it means in the broader context for the whole of the industry, but also what it means and some of the things we've been doing at Haleon in order to just share a little bit about the journey. And with that, I want to welcome KK. KK, please join. Thank you. Pleasure to have you.
Well, let's crack on with cracking the AI code. So I'm missing the clicker. Thank you. Well, technical difficulties apart, let's crack on with it. When I started preparing for this presentation, I realized that the question I keep getting asked most often is it AI versus humans? Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? And this quote from Mustafa Suleyman came to my mind. He was the co-founder of DeepMind. And he said, AI and human together still beats just AI. That is the case in some games, chess and Go. And I believe that's the case in life and in business. AI working together with humans is what's going to be the winner. My name is Kshitij Kumar. Everybody calls me KK. I'm the Chief Data Officer at Haleon. Was a Chief Data Officer at OneFootball, Farfetch, led data at Zalando. I am from the US. I live in London right now. And I am going to talk to you about just giving you a little bit of an introduction. AI in the industry, AI in Haleon, and how you can get started with AI. So I'm part of Haleon. We deliver better everyday health with humanity. All of these brands that you're seeing are Haleon brands, you know the Advils and the Sensodynes. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll understand what it means for the AI perspective. First of all, let's spell AI and define what it actually means. So AI really is just some software that's able to autonomously make some decisions, create some content sometimes, create predictions, give some recommendations. You heard a lot of examples earlier in Scott and other presentations. The thing that this is built on is what's called machine learning. Machine learning is the ability for these computers to actually learn by themselves without us having to necessarily train them. Now, there's a new thing called generative AI. Generative AI, if you've heard of things like Bard and ChatGPT, et cetera, generative AI is AI that actually creates new content. Could be pictures, could be videos, could be text, and I'll show you some examples of some of these. Now, I believe AI is actually the fourth tectonic tech shift. And what do I mean by that? We started with computers. Computers changed the way we live, the way we work, but then we decided to connect those computers. When you connect those computers, you've got an internet. And now you could get a lot of information from wherever you are. The third shift in my mind was mobile. You actually take those computers that are now connected and say, I'm going to put that power in the palm of your hand. That was a huge shift. The fourth is AI. If you make those computers and that internet much more intelligent, what can you actually do? And in my mind, we are really at the beginning of that fourth tectonic shift right now. You will hear about people talking about artificial general intelligence. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is basically an AI that's all-knowing, all-thinking. You can ask it any questions, and it'll give you those answers. We're not talking about that. That's not here yet. It's going to be 10, 15, 20 years, depends on who you ask. But at some point, we will get to that point where AI does actually know and can actually answer any question. I figured it'd be interesting to put this slide up. All of us have used Netflix, I'm assuming, or Spotify or Twitter, et cetera. It took Netflix almost 18 years to get to the point that there were 100 million users for Netflix. It took Facebook 4.5 years to do that. It took ChatGPT just 2 months to get to that same point. What that tells us is that the speed of this change is actually accelerating, and it's accelerating really, really fast. People like it, people are using it. But if you've heard of ChatGPT, that's not the only generative AI solution out there. Google has Bard, they've always had DeepMind. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT, they also build DALL-E. Microsoft has Copilot, and Meta, which used to be Facebook, has Llama. What's interesting about Meta is that they actually have something called Llama 2, which is open source. So you can't just get these things from these players. You can actually take it, you can own it, you can train it, you can make it your own with the open source. So many different choices. And by the way, as Scott was talking about earlier, there is so much investment going into this. If you go into Silicon Valley right now, there are many more players coming at many different angles in solving this. Why do I like generative AI, really? It's because, in my mind, this is really just opening the door to the use of AI. Generative AI enables AI. What do I mean by that? What GenAI has done is it's made it really simple, really easy for me, my mother who lives in the Himalayas, 80-year-old lady, who actually does use ChatGPT to ask questions and get some answers. Somebody like her can actually do this today. And she doesn't need to know any coding. She doesn't need to know what AI is. She just asks questions and gets some answers. Not all of those answers are accurate, by the way. And not all of those answers should be trusted. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, Gartner says, in the next few years, we're going to have most of our new applications will be developed with low-code or no-code technologies. There are other predictions out there. The point is, all of these are actually going to sit probably behind a language model, what generative AI really is. These Gen AI systems are really interfaces. One really interesting thing at the very bottom of that slide is that Gen AI today does not fully understand the context. Gen AI today actually does not understand the nuance. All it's doing is really giving you the next best answer. And so really important to know that even though it looks like it knows the answers, it actually doesn't. It doesn't understand it. To make that clear, I thought we would put up a real example. And I ran into somebody in the hallway who has a hair care brand. And how funny that we should ask that same question here. We thought we would ask ChatGPT, design a shampoo for us that calms the user. Now, we didn't give it any other information. We just said, design a shampoo that calms the user, right? Just 3 things: shampoo, calms the user, and design it. Well, let's see what they came back with. ChatGPT came back with a name, Tranquil Tresses, which, by the way, is the name of many products out there today. It doesn't know that it's a copyright. It comes back with a whole product description, which seems really reasonable. It actually comes back with key ingredients, and some of them are supposed to be calming, essential oils, lavender, et cetera, and it also shows features and benefits. And the features and benefits are related to the topic that we asked: stress relief formulas, gentle cleansing, shampoo, right? We didn't ask it for directions for use, but it gave us those anyways. And some of those directions are reasonable. I wouldn't believe all of them because it has really no understanding of what it's actually telling us. It's just giving us the next best thing that it thinks we need to know. Although The interesting point is, I think at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see it says, note, as with any new hair care product, etc. Somebody has actually done the work of saying, let's not advise too much. Let's make sure people do understand that this is just AI, and it may or may not work. So, as you saw there, generative AI is unlocking a world of creativity. And here's an example of that, too. We asked, and as I said before, I'm a Silicon Valley guy who lives in London. We asked, show us some pictures. We asked Midjourney, which is an image generator. Show us some pictures of bears in front of landmarks. Well, it seems to understand that we were asking it from London. It put it in front of the Tower Bridge in London, the Trafalgar Square, and a few other places in London. But it also seems to understand something more. I used to live in Berlin, and I've never actually said that to it. But it actually put some pictures that are of Brandenburg Tor and a tiger walking in front of Brandenburg Tor. So what this is telling you is, yes, it does unleash creativity. It can create new, interesting things. However, it's also learning from us. Whatever we are asking, whatever we are doing, it's actually seeing what we have told it and putting it in context. So it's opening the door, but it's opening the door to AI that's sitting behind a lot of these interfaces. And we touched a little bit about this. There are risks with generative AI. AI in general, and particularly generative AI, has many well-known and publicized risks. Where do these risks come from? Well, the first place they come from is the bias in the data that it was used to train on. So bad data will give you bad AI. And unfortunately, a lot of the data that we have today isn't always clean, isn't always balanced. There is a bias in there. As we saw with the copyright example with the tranquil tresses there, the AI doesn't often know whether it's legal or illegal, the thing that's it's actually created for you, whether that's legal or illegal. So we have to be aware that these risks are there, and these risks will continue. We do expect them to continue. But I think what you can do is you can actually take a well-thought-out, proactive approach to make sure that the value that we're trying to open is done safely. So here's an example of an inaccuracy, a hallucination. So we call it hallucination. Sometimes if you ask GenAI something, it'll actually give you an answer which doesn't really exist. So one of the students in my son's class, who shall remain nameless, decided to solve a task given by his teacher by asking ChatGPT. And it asked for some references, etc. ChatGPT wrote an article, gave references, and the references looked great, the article looked great. When we actually looked at the references, we found out those people didn't exist, and the books didn't exist. It created names, it created titles which seemed relevant to the article. And so, this gentleman was smart enough to know that he should double check the work that was coming out of ChatGPT. But that inaccuracy, that hallucination, not everybody will know that it's actually there. So you have to be really careful with it. And then there are, of course, the ethical issues with this. What we've done at Haleon is we're taking a very, I would say, proactive approach. The first thing we did when we started implementing AI was to also invest in what we call a responsible AI set of principles. We're actually taking those principles inside the company, making sure people understand the risks. And remember the first thing I said, make sure there's a human in the loop. Human and AI together is what's going to succeed. I'll give you some examples of AI in the industry. Some of these come from my background of using AI successfully in consumer goods. So I used to work at Farfetch, one of the world's biggest luxury online retailers. I was their chief data officer on their board. And we developed an AI-powered recommendation algorithm, one of the best in the world, I would say. Very personalized, predicts the customer, provides tailored recommendations. But we heard earlier about this is not really the only thing. There's actually humans involved in making sure that we do sort this and give you that assortment, not just by the AI. It's AI plus humans. Zalando. Zalando is Europe's biggest fast fashion company. I used to run central data for them. And we developed many different, very similar things to what I was talking about at Farfetch, but also visual search engines. You can actually search for something by giving a picture. I like these shoes, I'll give you a picture of these shoes, find me something similar to that. And the recommendation comes in. Spotify, of course, if you've used Spotify, it has a personalized playlist system. It understands the taste that you're looking at, past plays, and creates new music based on that. And this, by the way, is supposed to be 30% or more of their streams today. If you think about the examples I gave you here, these are all personalization examples, but there are many more use cases that are relevant to the consumer business. Big or small, whatever the size of your business, you can use AI today. You can do things like trend and sentiment analysis. Fraud detection's been there for a long time, really understanding if somebody is actually a valid customer or not. Visual search, we just talked about. Shipping, automating, figuring out when that article is going to get to you if you're buying it online. And then things like automated product tagging. If this jacket is put in front of a camera and you take a picture of this jacket, I can ask AI to tell me everything about the jacket. It'll tell me not just the color, the size, the shape. It'll tell me who it's good for. There are all these features that you can actually extract just from taking a picture. So you don't have to do all of that by hand. Pricing, we've talked about pricing in the industry for a long time, but we're often leaving money on the table if we don't understand what others are charging, if we don't understand what people should be paying for it, if we don't understand geographical differences. AI algorithms can analyze all of these things. Product recommendation, supply chain, right? The forecasting, both on the demand and the supply side. Do you understand what your demand really is? Have you looked at the weather? What's going to happen with the summers this year or the winters this year? When should you actually start stocking certain kinds of clothes, certain kinds of products? These are all just some use cases. My feeling is there are many more behind this, and I'm happy to talk to someone if you have some questions on that. So then I thought we should talk a little bit about AI and GenAI at Haleon itself. One of the really interesting things we did first was we created this thing called Seeing AI. A lot of our customers are actually not able to read the labels on the products that we have. So we created an app and an AI system by which you can just scan it, and it'll tell you everything. It'll speak it back to you. It'll do it in a few languages, and it's called Seeing AI. So it is a visual search application. It is driven by AI, but it has a real purpose behind it, making sure that our customers who have trouble reading can actually get that answer. We also did some experiments with things like cold and flu incidences. So one of the issues with AI, with supply chain, is getting the right product to the right time, place at the right time. If you can predict when the cold and flu are going to happen, at which place, at what time, you can make sure that there's enough supply there so that anybody who needs that product has it at the time when you need it. Let's talk a little bit about how we could actually get started with AI. In my mind, the first thing we have to do is define who you want to be. Where do you actually want to play? Do you want to just use AI? Do you want to tailor existing algorithms? Do you want to develop AI from scratch? And there are reasons why you may want to do all of them. Once you've defined those objectives, where are you going to invest? What's that investment theme? And once you've done that, how are you actually going to get there? What's the priority that you're going to focus on? How you're going to get all of these things done? And then, once you've taken those decisions, how do you build the foundations? Obviously, let's make sure there's responsible AI, robust principles, make sure people know about them. Absolutely need to make sure the talent is there. There is a culture of AI. In my mind, data and AI is not a tech problem, it's a culture problem. The tech is there. How do you make sure people actually use that data and AI in order to get those results you need? And the most important thing probably underneath it is those data assets. Do we have those data assets properly? Where is our data? Is it clean enough? Can I use it? All of these things have to be done before you get started. That's the foundations. And of course, last but not the least, let's plan for the long term. Where are we going to go? Do we need to have explainability on why AI took certain decisions or not? All of these decisions need to be made first. Since we talked about generative AI quite a bit, I thought it'd be good to say, what if you didn't want to do all of those things, just wanted to play with GenAI and see if it could be useful for your business? Well, the best way to do it is use it. Learn by using. Give it something to do. Give it something new. Ask for, as the examples we put there, what are the retail consumer trends in this space, et cetera. You have to remember that these things are actually not trained with real-time data in most cases. In some cases, they are. A lot of them, like ChatGPT, for instance, only has data up to 2021. It hasn't been trained beyond that. But there are others that are more real-time than that. You can also tell it to draft text, like that student example that I gave. You can tell it to write an email. You can tell it to write an article, all of those things. You can ask for a plan, build a plan. It's really good at that. You can also tell it to analyze the data. You've got some data. You can tell it, look at this and tell me what you see with it. One caveat, if you use the existing open versions of any of these products, that data that you just gave it is no longer your data, because it has now been uploaded into that generative AI system. So you have to be really careful, because that system will at some point pull it in and make it available to everybody else. And again, tooling, all kinds of tooling, Bard, ChatGPT, et cetera, all of them are there. But if you do want to train these on your own data, what you have to do is you have to bring it inside your system and make sure that it can't actually take that data outside. How do you do that? Or how do you actually do machine learning in general? You create your own data infrastructure. My recommendation would be work with any compute infrastructure that's out there. Basically stay on the cloud. There are three main big players in that: Amazon, AWS, Google, and Microsoft. All are our partners. We are agnostic. You can use any of them. All of them actually have very good tools to get started with. And there are very solid, well-trained models out there, open source or people who've actually built them, companies that are actually selling them. You can use those. You don't have to build your own models from the beginning. What you do have to do is to fine-tune those models. You have to train those models on your data. And if you do it inside your own infrastructure, inside your own cloud, you don't run the risk of sending that into somebody else's domain. You fine-tune them, train them, you test them against a set of data and say, does it actually work? And if it works, you deploy them. And then rinse and repeat. This is a cycle. You start by doing it once, and you get better and better and better at it. Coming back to what I said before, Haleon, we are delivering better everyday health with humanity. As you can see from an AI perspective, some of the things that we are doing in order to actually do this are, you saw the Seeing AI, bringing the humanity angle into it. You also saw, I've actually only been here a few months with Haleon, but I was really impressed to note that responsible AI was actually one of the things that we started with early on. Instead of just waiting to make impact and then figuring out how to do it, we started doing it from day one. So I'm KK, I'm the CDO at Haleon, and thank you for the time. I'd like to invite Lisa back.
Thanks,
and
KK.
maybe take some questions.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you, KK. Thank you, Lisa. We've got time for questions. Questions from the audience. We have a microphone that will be coming around. Dan O'Connor over here.
Yeah, the mix of the fashion and the healthcare, this is the hat, right? Like, isn't that awesome?
I'm being told to doff the hat. Thank you.
KK, you're
I think
becoming
we'll all
famous.
step it up a bit.
Thank you.
Great job. So there's a lot of people in the world who begin to think that digital commerce is going to start happening outside the app. Not on the website, not on the app, but voice. And I have some friends that I'm working with on a case in China who believe that their large language models are going to lead them potentially to an appless world. What are your thoughts?
Yes and yes. I think if you had asked me the question on generative AI a year ago, right, I knew of this company called OpenAI that were working on something, and I had heard of ChatGPT coming out, but I didn't know what ChatGPT did. And I'm supposed to be an expert in this space, right? And so that was just less than a year ago. November 2022, I think, was when they launched this. So this space is changing so fast that I am 100% sure there will be use cases like that. The question really is, does the audience, does the consumer actually adapt to those things? And what we've noticed in my past roles in Asia is certain countries in Asia are actually moving really fast, China being one of them. And with WeChat and things like that, they've tried out a few different use cases there. But I'll turn the question over to our USA president and say, where do you see the US in this?
I think you both hit on the thread, which is this is ultimately going to come down to consumer adoption. And are consumers going to be willing and open to having relationships with companies that want to use this new technology? We are seeing trends in other areas where voice adoption is happening pretty quickly. And it is starting to spike in the US as well. So how will that underlie platforms? I think that's a little bit to be seen, Dan. We're a little slower to adopt here, right, than what we see in Asia. But we do believe it will happen. It will be somewhere on that evolution curve. And I think the reality is we're going to have to be open in understanding how all of these things can come in and enter and be developing and piloting. We talk a lot about piloting as a way to get our use cases out there, begin experimenting, understanding, because it's not going to be fully predictable, right? So we're going to have to be ready for a range of situations. And part of that is the learning, that journey that we're all on, around this new space. But we're very excited.
Follow that up just real quickly. I mean, one of the big lessons from the Instacarts and the other people who have digitalized fast-turning consumer goods is volume tends to concentrate as consumers move to buy again. So Amazon's promoting buy again, everyone's promoting buy again, and everyone buys 1,000 or 1,100 items pretty repeatedly. One, do you see that? And two, what are the implications for a brand that's trying to drive innovation and a story to the consumer if the consumer is simply focused on buy again?
Yeah, well, this is, again, probably more of a consumer question. We've been watching this all along. We have said from the beginning, you have to be on that list, either that literal list, that mental list, or that list that they've already stored in an app somewhere. And I'm still in an app world, Dan. But I think that is so critical because it is very hard after they take very routine behaviors against something that they are satisfied with to intervene or get your product noticed in that world. So you've got to be in the upstream of that, or you have to have a really, really compelling way to get them to convert, which is generally a real genuine benefit. And in health, sometimes that does matter, or a really compelling price, right? And sometimes they'll switch out for that.
And I think you also...
From the audience.
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I was just going to say, just to finish that thought, these AI technologies actually let you understand your customer and understand what that customer is doing. If the customer is actually working on only repeat orders, is it just because we were showing them repeat orders? Or is it because they really want those repeat orders? What if you showed them other things, right? And the AI is getting better at that. Show other things and see how they adapt to it. So I think if you leverage AI, you will understand your customers better and figure out what the right direction is. Questions?
Lisa, hi, Wendy. The discussion around going from lots of experience you have as it relates to fashion and personalization around fashion, and then the implications in healthcare. Now, I would hate to make a fashion error, but when it comes to my health, I might think a bit differently. So, Lisa, how do you, or have you both see this moving into the really everyday healthcare space? And really informing the way we develop products and services around that?
I mean, there are so many ways that I think about this. It opens up so many opportunities. Innovation is certainly one of them. At that speed with which you can do the front end of thinking about solving healthcare challenges can be sped up by over 25%. That's huge, right? In terms of development time, solving real unmet needs or solving them in new ways. We run in pretty complicated categories from a consumer's perspective in healthcare. Those decision hierarchies that they try to follow, they're not easy. And when you're in that situation individually, so I often, I'm asking the team, how do we help them solve these problems and challenges in new and exciting ways? So that's a little bit, again, I'm always kind of coming from a consumer. How do we solve it better for a consumer? And then the technology expertise, I'll let you weigh in on that.
Absolutely, and I think you answered it. There are, in Haleon, one of the things I feel lucky about is coming from a startup world in way back when I was in Silicon Valley, we have people with decades and decades of experience in this space. What we have experience that we're bringing in from the outside is data and AI. And if you can marry those, right, people who really understand this domain, really understand how to make safe, good, better products, and you give them those tools that allow them to understand how consumers are actually using them. When somebody talks to us, when they talk to our customer service person, what are they actually telling us? And then use these to start understanding where you go next. So it's absolutely a combination of what already exists on the knowledge side and tying it to the tools.
This is a question probably for the retailers as well as the suppliers, but as a supplier, we're trying to bring innovation to our retail partners. We run into this concept of category captains who are helping the retailers set the category. How does AI impact that, and are those category captains going to be there in the future?
Well, I'm not a retailer, so let me just preface by saying that first. I mean, there's plenty of them in the room that we have a lot of admiration for, so they should build on their answers when they are up here. What I would say is it's going to transform just like everything else. I think they're going to care about that and many other things, but I think our ways into those decisions and choices that consumers are going to make, I think the shelf's just going to serve a totally different purpose in the future. And so what does category leadership look like, I think is going to change. We still will have a lot of folks that need to get product from stores, but they're also doing that in many, many other ways. And understanding that whole journey, we look a lot at the health journey because we're in healthcare. That health journey is really changing what gets decided at shelf versus what used to get decided at shelf. So it's a very evolving space.
There's a book called, I think, The Shelves Have Eyes, or The Aisles Have Eyes. And I would recommend any retailer or anybody who works with a retailer to read the book. This is a few years old, so take it with a grain of salt. But the idea that the author came up with was bang on. What they said is the retailer has to understand the business, and the people who sell through the retailers have to understand the business. The business really is the consumer who's walking through the aisles. How do you actually understand when did that consumer stop? When did that consumer actually look at something? When did that consumer actually buy it? Did they keep it? Did they return it? Right? And so all of us, I think, have to understand that entire life cycle. The retailers benefit, the suppliers benefit, and the consumer benefits.
Yes, and thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, being willing to come out early in his time in the industry and share with us how to think about AI.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, KK. Thank you, Lisa, always.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hey, KK, thank you for enlightening us today. And Lisa, thank you both for enlightening us today. And KK, thank you for coming from London to be with us today. And I love your hat as well. And one other thing, I think I'd have done better at Ole Miss if I'd have had ChatGPT. But I'd have probably had to tell somebody how to do it for me and then set the dadgum thing up. But I know I'd have made better than 2 point anyway. But, all right, right?